Playing with Power MTG. Powerful cards, powerful formats. Be sure to check out Dragon Shield for all of the best accessories to protect your decks. TCG Player for cards at great prices while still supporting local game stores. And Patreon, where you get awesome benefits for your direct support. We are excited to announce our very own custom Dragon Shield sleeves. You can find these on our store along with tons of other great Playing with Power merch. Pick up your custom Playing with Power sleeves today. Links are in the description below. For tonight's game, we're playing with our Mox Pro patrons Garner and Steven, who have brought some of their very favorite decks to try to take us down. Let's see how they do here tonight. Now, let's start off by showcasing our fighters this evening. First, we have Adam piloting the partner pair of Ashai Ojutai Dragon Speaker and Thrasios Triton Hero. This is a Hate Bears deck that seeks to grind out advantage, slow down its opponents with its suite of disruptive creatures, and kill them through combat damage. Adam's opening hand contains an Elvish Spirit Guide, Carpet of Flowers, Avison's Pilgrim, Arbor Elf, Sylvan Safekeeper, Windswept Heath, and a Plains. Next, we have Garner piloting Magda, Brazen Outlaw. This deck seeks to use its commander to quickly tutor out Clock of Omens to win the game together with an Artifact Dwarf. Garner's opening hand contains a Dwarven Grunt, Stoke the Flames, Dwarven Scorcher, Dwarven Armorer, Urza Saga, Mountain, and his London Mulligan is a Mirror of the Forebears. After that, we have Steven piloting the partner pair of Thrasios Triton Hero and Tevesh Zot Doom of Fools. This is a Sultai mid-range list that looks to grind out advantage before winning the game with either Laboratory Maniac or Thassa's Oracle. His opening hand contains Elves of Deep Shadow, City of Brass, Mana Confluence, Gemstone Cavern, Misty Rainforest, Command Tower, and a Marsh Flats. Finally, we have Noah playing Alayla, Artful Provocateur. This is a stacks deck that generates value through casting plenty of enchantments. His opening hand contains Vampiric Tutor, Aven Mind Sensor, Talisman of Progress, Flooded Strand, Sea of Clouds, Hollowed Fountain, and an Island. Without further ado, let's kick off this big, bad, bombastic, backbreaking Boulder Dash. Adam has the best argument as to why he should go first. He said he wanted to, and gets to start us off. But Steven has a pregame action, putting Gemstone Caverns onto the battlefield, exiling Marsh Flats. Adam draws a card for turn and plays a Windswept Heath. He cracks it, pays a life, and fetches up a tropical island onto the battlefield. He casts Arbor Elf. He passes. Garner draws a card for turn and plays a mountain. He casts CDH All-Star Dwarven Grunt. He sends the turn to Steven. Steven draws and plays a command tower. He casts his commander, Thrasios Triton Hero. He ends the turn. Noah draws and plays a command tower as well. With nothing else, he passes it back to Adam. Adam draws and plays a Plains. He exiles Elvish Spirit Guide from his hand, adding a green. He casts his commander, Ashai Ojutai Dragon Speaker. The turn moves to Garner. Garner draws and plays an Urza Saga, getting its first counter. He casts his commander, Magda, Brazen Outlaw. Ashai triggers and gets a +1/+1 counter. He moves to combat, attacking Noah with Dwarven Grunt. Magda triggers and Garner creates a treasure. Noah takes it, and in his second main phase, Garner casts Dwarven Scorcher. Ashai triggers and gets a counter. All through, Garner passes. Steven draws and plays a Mana Confluence. He passes. At the end of Steven's turn, Noah casts Vampiric Tutor. He fetches up a card onto the top of his library and loses 2 life. The turn then moves to Noah. Noah draws and plays Sea of Clouds. He casts Mana Crypt. Ashai triggers and gets a counter. He casts Talisman of Progress. Ashai triggers and gets another counter. Noah ships it to Adam. Adam draws and casts Sylvan Safekeeper. He moves to combat and attacks Noah with Ashai. Noah takes it, and in his second main phase, he casts Avison's Pilgrim. Adam passes. Garner draws, and in his first main phase, Urza Saga gets another counter. He casts Soul Ring. Ashai triggers and gains a counter. He casts Zorn. Ashai triggers and gains a counter. He moves to combat and attacks Noah with everything. Magda triggers, and Garner creates 6 treasures. Noah takes it all, and Garner passes the turn. Steven draws and plays City of Brass. He casts Malevolent Hermit. Ashai triggers and gains a counter. Steven ends the turn. At the end of Steven's turn, Noah flashes in Aven Mind Sensor. Ashai triggers and gains a counter. In response, Garner activates Magda, sacrificing 5 treasures and fetches up a Winter Orb onto the battlefield. Aven Mind Sensor resolves and the turn passes to Noah. Noah untaps a land through Winter Orb. In his upkeep, he loses his Mana Crypt roll and takes 3 damage. He draws and plays Vault of Champions. He taps his Talisman to help cast his commander, Alayla, Artful Provocateur. Ashai triggers and gains a counter. Noah ships the turn. Adam untaps a land through Winter Orb. He draws and moves to combat. He attacks Steven with Ashai, Steven takes it, and in his second main phase, he casts his other commander, Thrasios, Triton Hero. He passes. Garner untaps a land through Winter Orb. During his upkeep, Garner convokes 3 dwarves and Zorn to cast Stoke the Flames, targeting Aven Mind Sensor. Ashai triggers and gains a counter. Magda triggers and Garner creates 6 treasures. Aven Mind Sensor is killed and Garner draws. In his first main phase, Urza Saga triggers. He sacrifices it and fetches up a Universal Automaton onto the battlefield. He activates Magda, sacrificing 5 treasures and fetches up Clock of Omens onto the battlefield. He activates Clock of Omens, tapping Clock of Omens and Universal Automaton to untap Universal Automaton. Since Universal Automaton is a dwarf, Magda triggers and Garner creates 2 treasure tokens, 1 through Magda and 1 through Zorn. He activates Clock of Omens again, tapping his newly created treasure token and Universal Automaton to untap Universal Automaton. He demonstrates a loop of tapping Automaton and a treasure, creating infinite tapped and untapped treasures. He activates Magda, sacrifices 5 treasures, and fetches up a Maskwood Nexus onto the battlefield. He activates Magda 3 more times, fetching up Lion's Eye Diamond, Memory Jar, and Elixir of Immortality onto the battlefield. Garner sacrifices Lion's Eye Diamond, discarding his hand, adding 3 red. He activates Elixir of Immortality, gaining 5 life and shuffling it and his graveyard into his library. He activates Magda 2 more times, fetching LED and Elixir back onto the battlefield. He sacrifices Memory Jar and each player exiles all cards from their hand face down and draws 7 cards. He activates Elixir of Immortality, gaining 5 life and shuffling it and his graveyard into his library. He demonstrates a loop of fetching up both Elixir of Immortality and Memory Jar through Magda, sacrificing Memory Jar to cause everyone to draw 7, then shuffling his graveyard into his library through Elixir of Immortality. He repeats this loop until all of his opponents draw their decks, and Garner wins the game. That was such a fast and efficient game by Garner on Magda. Let's see if we can get another, shall we? In this game, Garner brings back Magda and his opening hand contains Chrome Mox, Mirror of the Forebears, Reckoner Bankbuster, Mana Crypt, Cavern of Souls, Barbarian Ring, and Survivor Encampment. Steven brings back Thrasios and Tevesh and his opening hand contains Mana Drain, Tasha's Hideous Laughter, Ancient Tomb, Exotic Orchard, Bloodstained Mire, Gemstone Caverns, and his Lennon Mulligan is Cephalid Coliseum. Noah brings back Alayla, Artful Provocateur, and his opening hand contains a Flusterstorm, Chain of Vapor, Soul Ring, Thassa's Oracle, Command Tower, Urza's Saga, and his London Mulligan is Godless Shrine. Adam brings back Thrasios and Ashai, and his opening hand contains Eldritch Evolution, Gilded Drake, Rest in Peace, Sarah Ascendant, Deafening Silence, Arid Mesa, and a Forest. And Garner gets to start us off, but Steven has a pregame action and puts Gemstone Caverns onto the battlefield, exiling Exotic Orchard. Garner draws a card for turn and casts a Mana Crypt. He plays Cavern of Souls, naming Dwarf as it enters. He casts his commander, Magda Brazen Outlaw. He passes. Steven draws and plays a Bloodstained Mire. He sends the turn to Noah. Noah draws and plays an Urza Saga, getting its first counter. He casts Soul Ring. He ends his turn. Adam draws and plays an Arid Mesa. He cracks it, pays a life, and fetches up a Tundra onto the battlefield. He casts Sarah Ascendant. Everyone groans, and he ships the turn to Garner. During his upkeep, Garner loses his Mana Crypt roll and takes 3 damage. He draws and plays Barbarian Ring. He taps Barbarian Ring to help cast Zorn. In response, Steven cracks Bloodstained Mire, pays a life, and fetches up an Underground Sea onto the battlefield. He casts Mana Drain, countering Zorn. Garner moves to combat, attacking Steven with Magda. Magda triggers and Garner creates a treasure. Steven takes it and passes the turn. Steven draws, and in his first main phase, he adds 3 colorless through Mana Drain. He plays an Ancient Tomb for turn. He taps Ancient Tomb to cast his commander, Tevesh Szat, Doom of Fools. He ticks up Tevesh's first ability, creating 2 Thrall tokens. He sends the turn to Noah. Noah draws, and in his first main phase, Urza Saga gets another counter. He plays Command Tower. He casts Demonic Tutor. He fetches up a card into his hand, and he ships the turn. Adam draws and moves to combat. He attacks Tevesh with Sarah Ascendant. Tevesh dies, and Adam gains 6 life. In his second main phase, he plays a Forest. He casts Soul Ring. He casts Rest in Peace. It enters and exiles all graveyards. Adam ships the turn. In his upkeep, Garner loses his mana crypt roll and takes 3 damage. He draws and casts Reckoner Bankbuster. It enters with 3 charge counters. He plays Survivor's Encampment. He casts Soul Ring. He taps Magda to add a red through Survivor's Encampment. Magda triggers and he creates a treasure. He taps Barbarian Ring to help cast Stranglehold. With the board even more locked down, he passes. Steven draws and taps Ancient Tomb to help cast Tasha's Hideous Laughter. Each opponent exiles cards from the top of their library until they have exiled 20 mana value worth of cards. Steven sends the turn to Noah. Noah draws, and in his first main phase, Urza's Saga triggers. In response, he creates a construct. Still in response, Noah casts Chain of Vapor targeting Stranglehold. Steven returns Stranglehold to his hand and opts to not continue the chain. Noah then sacrifices Urza's Saga and fetches up a Mox Opal onto the battlefield. He plays Gemstone Caverns. He ends the turn. Adam draws and casts Wild Growth targeting Tundra. He moves to combat and attacks Steven with Sarah's Ascendant. Steven takes it and Adam gains 6 life. In a second main phase, he casts his commander, Thrasios, Triton Hero. He passes. During his upkeep, Garner wins his mana crypt roll. He draws and activates Reckoner Bankbuster, removing a charge counter and drawing a card. He casts Soul Guide Lantern. He casts Mirror of the Forebears. He ships the turn. Steven draws and taps his Ancient Tomb and pays 6 life to help cast Toxic Deluge. In response, Noah floats a black through Mox Opal. Deluge resolves and gives all creatures -6/-6, wiping the board. He follows it up with the Llanowar Elves. He sends the turn to Noah. Before mana fades, Noah casts Tainted Pact. He exiles cards from the top of his library until he reveals Fellwar Stone, putting it into his hand. The turn moves to Noah. Noah draws and plays a Flooded Strand. He cracks Flooded Strand, pays a life, and fetches up an Underground Sea onto the battlefield. He casts Fellwar Stone. He casts Thassa's Oracle. It enters, and in response, Noah casts Demonic Consultation, naming the Gitrog monster in true fashion. He exiles his entire library, Thassa's Oracle's trigger resolves, and Noah wins the game. That game was just as fast as the last one. How about, as a special treat, we do just one more? In this game, Steven brings back Thrasios Triton Hero and Tevesh Szat, and his opening hand contains Seaborn Muse, Gilded Drake, Mystic Remora, Mox Diamond, Imperial Seal, Forbidden Orchard, and Overgrown Tomb. Next, we have Noah playing the Gitrog monster. This is a really cool deck that has such an awesome combo line that wins the game, we swear. Noah's opening hand contains Assassin's Trophy, Collector Oof, Boreal Druid, Deathrite Shaman, Prismatic Vista, Emergent Zone, and his Lenna Mulligan is Ulamog, the Infinite Gyre. Adam brings back Thrasios Triton Hero and Ishai Ojutai Dragon Speaker, and his opening hand contains an Eldritch Evolution, Arbor Elf, Veil of Summer, Elvish Spirit Guide, Finale of Devastation, Homeward Path, and a Tropical Island. Garner brings back Magda Brazen Outlaw, and his opening hand contains a Galvanic Blast, Dwarven Grunt, Pyroblast, Ricochet Trap, Memory Jar, Holdout Settlement, and Shinka, the Blood-Soaked Keep. Steven draws and casts Mox Diamond, discarding Overgrown Tomb. He casts Mystic Remora. He plays Forbidden Orchard. He passes. Noah draws and plays a Prismatic Vista. He cracks it, pays a life, and fetches up a forest onto the battlefield. He casts Deathrite Shaman. Noah ships the turn. Adam draws and plays a Tropical Island. He casts Arbor Elf. He ends his turn. Garner draws and plays Shinka, the Blood-Soaked Keep. He casts Dwarven Grunt. He sends the turn to Steven. In his upkeep, Steven pays for his Remora. Steven draws and plays Verdant Catacombs. He cracks it, pays a life, and fetches up a Tropical Island onto the battlefield. He taps his Forbidden Orchard, giving Garner a 1/1 spirit to help cast his commander, Thrasios, Triton Hero. He passes to Noah. Noah draws and plays an Emergent Zone. He casts Collector Oof. He activates Deathrite Shaman, exiling Verdant Catacombs and adding a green. He casts Boreal Druid. The turn moves to Adam. Adam draws and plays a command tower. He exiles Elvish Spirit Guide from his hand, adding a green. He casts Finale of Devastation, where X equals 2. Mystic Remora triggers, and Steven draws. To the horror of the table, Adam fetches up a Drannith Magistrate onto the battlefield, with the game slowed down even more. The turn ends. Garner draws and plays a mountain. He moves to combat. He swings at Adam. Adam takes it, and Garner sends the turn back to Steven. In his upkeep, Steven lets his Mystic Remora die. He draws and casts Carpet of Flowers. He moves to his second main phase and adds a blue through Carpet of Flowers. He pays 2 life to cast Gitaxian Probe. He looks at Noah's hand and draws a card. He passes the turn. Noah draws and plays a Nurturing Peatland. Out of action, he sends the turn to Adam. Adam draws and plays a Bountiful Promenade. He casts his commander, a shy Ojutai Dragon Speaker. As his opponents look on in jealousy, he ends the turn. Garner draws and plays Holdout Settlement. He moves to combat and attacks Adam. Adam takes it, and the turn moves back to Steven. Steven draws and taps his Forbidden Orchard, giving Garner a 1/1 Spirit to help cast Imperial Seal. Ishai triggers and gains a counter. He fetches up a card onto the top of his library and loses 2 life. He ships the turn. In his end step, Noah taps Nurturing Peatland to help cast Assassin's Trophy, targeting Drannith Magistrate. Ishai triggers and gains a counter. Drannith Magistrate is destroyed, and Adam fetches up a basic forest onto the battlefield. The turn moves to Noah. Noah draws and activates Deathrite Shaman, exiling Overgrown Tomb to add 1 green. He taps his Nurturing Peatland to help cast his commander, the Gitrog Monster. Ishai triggers and gains a counter. He plays Bazaar of Baghdad. He activates Bazaar of Baghdad, drawing 2 and discarding Endurance, Wild Growth, and Reign of Filth. He passes. Adam draws and plays Homeward Path. He casts his commander, Thrasios, Triton Hero. He moves to combat and attacks Noah with Ishai. Noah takes the hit and ends the turn. In his end step, Garner casts Galvanic Blast, targeting Collector Oof. Ishai triggers and gets a counter. Oof dies, and the turn moves to Garner. Garner draws and plays Cavern of Souls, naming Dwarf as it enters. He casts his commander, Magda, Brazen Outlaw. Ishai triggers and gets a counter. He activates Holdout Settlement, tapping Magda and adding a red. Magda triggers and Garner creates a treasure. He casts Magus of the Moon. Ishai triggers and gains a counter. In response to Magus, Adam flashes in an Aven Mind Sensor. The Mind Sensor and Magus resolve. Garner moves to combat and attacks Noah with Dwarven Grunt. Magda triggers and Garner creates a treasure token. Noah takes it and Garner sends the turn to Steven. Steven draws and plays an Ancient Tomb. With nothing else, he ends his turn. In his upkeep, Noah floats a colorless from Emergent Zone, then sacrifices it to Gitrog Monster. Gitrog triggers and he draws. He draws for turn. He activates Deathrite Shaman, exiling Prismatic Vista to add a green. He casts Finale of Devastation, X equaling 2. Ishai triggers and gains a counter. He returns Collector Oof from his graveyard to the battlefield. Noah passes. Adam draws and moves to combat. He swings Ishai at Noah and Aven Mind Sensor at Steven. They both take it, and Adam ships the turn. Garner draws and moves to combat and swings Dwarven Grunt at Noah. Magda triggers and Garner creates a treasure. He takes it, and Garner passes. Steven draws and casts Lotus Petal. Still, with no action, he regrettably passes to Noah. In his upkeep, Noah floats mana from Nurturing Peatland and sacrifices it to the Gitrog Monster. Gitrog triggers and he draws. He draws for turn. He goes to combat and attacks Adam with the Gitrog Monster. Adam takes it. Noah ends his turn. In his end step, Adam activates Thrasios. He scries 1 and reveals Dovin's Veto into his hand. Adam draws and moves to combat. He swings Ishai and Aven Mind Sensor at Steven. Steven takes it and Adam sends the turn to Garner. Garner draws and casts Mox Opal. Ishai triggers and gains a counter. He casts Sphere of Resistance. Ishai triggers and gains a counter. He moves to combat and swings Dwarven Grunt at Noah. Magda triggers and Garner creates a treasure. He ends his turn. Steven draws and plays a City of Brass. Without a single thing to do, he wraps up his turn. In his upkeep, Noah sacrifices Bazaar of Baghdad to the Gitrog Monster. Gitrog triggers and he draws. He draws for turn. He plays a Snow-Covered Forest. He plays a Forbidden Orchard as his Gitrog land for turn. He moves to combat and attacks Garner with the Gitrog Monster. Garner blocks with the Spirit Token. Noah passes. In his end step, Adam activates Thrasios, scrying 1 and revealing a Mystic Remora into his hand. Adam draws and moves to combat. He swings Ishai and Aven Mind Sensor at Steven. Steven takes it, Adam passes. Garner draws and moves to combat and swings Dwarven Grunt at Noah. Magda triggers and Garner creates a treasure. Noah takes the hit and sends the turn to Steven. In his end step, Steven activates Thrasios. He scries 1 and reveals a Scalding Tarn onto the battlefield tapped. Steven draws and still doesn't have a single bit of action. Poor guy. He passes. In his end step, Noah activates Deathrite Shaman, exiling Nurturing Peatland and adding a black mana. He casts Cabal Ritual with Threshold, adding 5 black. Ishai triggers and gains a counter. He then casts Ad Nauseam. Ashai triggers and gains a counter. In response, Adam activates Thrasios. He scries and reveals Scalding Tarn. He puts it onto the battlefield tapped. Steven then casts Fierce Guardianship for its alternative cost, targeting Ad Nauseam. Ashai triggers and gains a counter. Fierce Guardianship counters Ad Nauseam, and the turn moves to Noah. In his upkeep, he sacrifices Forbidden Orchard to the Gitrog monster. Gitrog triggers and Noah draws. He draws for turn. He moves to combat and swings the Gitrog monster at Garner. Garner blocks with the Spirit. Noah passes. Adam draws and moves to combat, swinging Aven Mind Sensor at Garner and Ashai at Steven. They both take it. Steven dies, and Adam passes, discarding to hand size. Garner draws and casts Jeska's Will, targeting Adam. Ashai triggers and gains a counter. Jeska's Will resolves. Garner adds 7 red and exiles Mutavault, Mana Crypt, and Zorn from the top of his library. He plays Mutavault. He casts Zorn. Ashai triggers and gains a counter. He casts Mana Crypt. Ashai triggers and gains a counter. He moves to combat. He swings Dwarven Grunt at Noah. Magda triggers and Garner creates 2 treasures. Noah takes it and Garner passes. In Garner's end step, Noah activates Deathrite Shaman, exiling Forbidden Orchard and adding a black. Noah flashes in an Oblivion Crown, targeting Deathrite Shaman. Ashai triggers and gains a counter. In response, Adam activates Thrasios. He scries and reveals Rest in Peace. He puts it into his hand and Oblivion Crown resolves. The turn moves to Noah. In his upkeep, Noah sacrifices a forest to the Gitrog monster. Gitrog triggers, and in response, Noah discards Golgari Grave Troll to Oblivion Crown. Gitrog's trigger resolves, and Noah dredges 6 to return Grave Troll to his hand. Since he dredged lands, Gitrog triggers again. In response, he discards Golgari Grave Troll to Oblivion Crown. He replaces the Gitrog draw with Golgari Grave Troll's dredge to mill 6 and return Golgari Grave Troll to his hand. He repeats this process 3 more times, discarding Golgari Grave Troll to Oblivion Crown and dredging it back each time. Finally, he mills Dakmor Salvage through dredge. Gitrog triggers. In response, Garner activates Magda, sacrificing 5 treasures and searches the top 4 cards of his library thanks to Aven Mind Sensor. He puts Tanglewire onto the battlefield. The Gitrog trigger resolves, and Noah replaces the draw with dredge from Dakmor Salvage. He discards Dakmor Salvage to Oblivion Crown, triggering Gitrog. He dredges 2 cards and returns Dakmor to his hand. He demonstrates a loop of repeating this process until he puts an Eldrazi Titan into his graveyard, gaining draw triggers every time. This shuffles his graveyard back into his library. He repeats this process until he has enough draw triggers built up to draw his entire deck. He channels Boseiju Who Endures, targeting Sphere of Resistance. In response, Adam casts Veil of Summer. Veil of Summer resolves, and Boseiju's ability destroys Sphere of Resistance. Noah discards an Eldrazi Titan and shuffles it into his deck. He finally moves to his draw step and draws the lone card in his deck. He plays a Swamp. He casts Dark Ritual. He then discards the Eldrazi Titan and a land to Oblivion Crown, shuffling all 3 cards in his graveyard into his library. He then stacks Shuffles, Dakmor Salvage dredges, and Gitrog draws in order to continually recast Dark Ritual to make a huge amount of black mana. He casts Opposition Agent. He follows it up with Dauthi Voidwalker. He casts Putrid Imp. He plays a Snow-Covered Forest. He casts Finale of Devastation for 69,420, boosting his team and giving them haste. He moves to combat, attacking Adam with Dauthi Voidwalker. He sends the rest at Garner. They both take it, and Noah wins the game. Wow, what a great set of games. Thanks so much to our Mox Pro patrons for joining us tonight. There was a lot of stacks, a lot of fast wins, and a lot of disruption. We saw lots of great decks do their thing and had a great time. Congrats to Garner on his win and to Noah for 2 wins on 2 different decks. About time he picks up some dubs around here. The most valuable card in Game 1 was Zorn. After being limited to the number of dwarves available to him, Zorn completely turbocharged Garner's treasure creation, allowing him to win with ease once Aven Mind Sensor was removed. The most valuable card in Game 2 goes to Chain of Vapor. It freed up the battlefield for him to be able to win, and for that, it gets the nod in such a short game. The most valuable card in Game 3 goes to Collector Oof. While it didn't directly win Noah the game, it held his opponents down long enough for Noah to be able to close it out. Well, that about wraps it up for this episode. Tune in next time when we duke it out to see who will be the king of the competitive EDH table. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.